Do you think that there is a sense that there's a bit too much anger and hate in the nationalist movement in the UK, whether that's English Defence League or this current iteration, even though I recognise that's something you're working on? Do you think that the part of what the movement should focus on is inclusivity and where real power is located, i.e. with the relationships between government, media and international interests?
When we're talking about making truce, yeah? When you're talking about making truce, how do we make a truce with the 40,000 British Muslims who are on a terror watch list? How do we do that? How do we, and when we say about all coming here and working together, Muslims have been here, 40, 50 years? In the reality, just speaking honestly, is their community well integrated and assimilated? It's not. It's not. It's not worked in Luton, it's not working in Birmingham, it's not working in Bradford. The Muslim community might work as a Muslim community, but it's not working as an integrated, assimilated British community. It's just not. Yeah, that's the truth. And when we look at the statistics of any of the dangers, so 2/3 of British Muslims, 66% of British Muslims would not report on another Muslim who was joining ISIS. We've got a problem. We've got a problem. So 33% of British Muslims want Sharia law in the UK. It's 1.2 million. How do we integrate or call a truce with 1.2 million people who wish to overthrow democracy and replace it with a supremacist Islamic ideology that would treat us as second-class citizens? How do we do that?
This is what I'd say, is if there are 1.2 million Muslims in the UK and those statistics about ISIS and whatnot, what I would say is if, like Bradford, but the examples used, Bradford, Luton, Birmingham, how do you grant autonomy and control to those people in those communities without it being disruptive? I would say probably something along the lines of, all right, like these areas have essentially become Muslim areas. In these areas, you should be granted autonomy and freedom. Let's hold a referendum on what level of migration British people want. And if it's zero, net zero, then that's the end of that. No more migration to the UK, full stop. And I would say that the answer to the problems you're outlining comes with maximally localizing power, whether that's the people of Epping or the people of Luton or the people of Bradford, acknowledging that we're not gonna, are we, deport 1.2 million Muslims that have been born, bred, grown up, played football with, lived with, got married into. You know, that's that. But if Britain is, and I would say it is, a Christian a Christian country that it should be governed according to Christian principles, and part of Christianity would at least be tolerance and acceptance of other faiths if they're not against us. With that proviso, not against us. So I would say that that's how it's done, with localising power, accepting Bradford's Bradford, Birmingham's Birmingham, East London is East London, Finsbury Park's Finsbury Park. Like, now, how are we going to minimise conflict? Minimise, not maximise.
Say, for example, we pick Bradford there. Yeah, Bradford. So 76% of Pakistani Muslims in Bradford marry their cousins, first cousins. So Pakistanis make up 3% of the UK population. They're responsible for 33% of child defects. Do you have any idea what the cost of that is on our economy? Why do they do that? Because Mohammed married his cousin. Yeah, I'm sorry. In Britain, that is not acceptable. And so when we look, if we say localize things, well, when a town becomes Islamic and we allow them to localize it, and there's still some non-Muslims there, what are they going to do? Even under democracy, yeah, they'll use democracy to finish democracy. So my point is in London, where London is now 30% English, is that acceptable? Is it acceptable for the whole of the UK to become 30% English and a majority Muslim nation? Is that acceptable? Do you think that's acceptable, Russell?
No, I don't. I think that the United Kingdom should be Christian. I think that the whole world should be Christian. I think every individual in the world should be Christian. But as a Christian, I believe in free speech and I believe in the right to choose your faith and find your own way to God. And even continuing my example of localization there, Tommy, what I say is that with that, if you had true localization financially and budgetarily also, that it would be in Bradford that that percentage of intermarrying was contained. They would have their own budget for hospitals, and yeah, you'd have some non-Muslim people living in Bradford, and in a sensibly managed, decentralized country, those people could determine whether or not they were going to live there. I want to live as a Christian. I want to raise my children as Christian. I want to be a good and loving man. I accept now that that's not everybody's path. But I think when we stay in the locust of opposition, that we are more malleable and more easily managed. To your point, you said earlier, you want people that agree on freedom of speech. We're bang on it. Sexualization of children, ridiculous, should be ended. And the stuff you've done on rape gangs, that's seismically good. Seismically good. You've impacted the way, the political direction of a country. Amazing. The education stuff, you're right. But I believe in this. If there is some crazy, well, no, let's not even call them crazy. If there's some jurisdiction or region where they're like, we're double liberal, we want to educate our kids to be gay and gender fluid or whatever it is, I go, all right, cool, you run your little world there. Do it. And we're Muslim over here. The majority, particularly if there is some kind of border control and resurgence of patriotism and Christian values, the majority in the UK will ultimately become Christian. More people are becoming Christian. God will take care of it. So I feel like at this grassroots, ground floor level, that the priority has got to be ensure that we don't run on hate, that we don't run on violence, even though I do respect when people are willing to confront, take violence and suffer violence because they believe in, because your beliefs are strong enough. And I know that's your position.
The utopia idea of all of it is great. It's just not realistic. Like, what's happening to Christians now in Nigeria? They're being massacred.
Massacred, I'm guessing. Yeah.
What's happening to them in Afghanistan? What are their rights like in Pakistan? What's it like for Christians in Saudi Arabia? What's it like for them all over when they become a minority? I know what it's like. Now across the whole Islamic world, there's 45 countries that Islam has come as a minority and ended up being a majority. Now, when it becomes a majority, are there any minority rights? There's none. So why do we think it's not a different Islam that's in Britain than the rest of the world? It's the same Islam. Why do we think? And my point is, Russell, I'm not willing to play a game, and I'm not willing to roll a dice or gamble on the future of Great Britain. As we say, England has 1,000 years of Christian history, and in 70 years we've destroyed that. And I think this country looks unrecognisable to so many now in towns and cities. And that right now, the figures are that 5 to 6% of the country is Islamic. What will it look like when it's 25%? Because the demographical change is coming. I don't want, as I said, and with the massive, and I think many Muslims are annoyed with mass immigration, yeah? The whole freshie thing, there are people that are born here, but I'm just not willing to play a game or take a risk. I just don't think we should. I think we should protect British people first.
But what if there was a lot of Christian migration to the UK and like we're getting persecuted by, all that? What would you say about that? The world has become increasingly divided, politically, socially, and economically, but many of these divisions stem from a deeper misunderstanding of how money, markets, and policy actually work. Wouldn't it be nice if there was an investment app that was designed by people who understand a macro perspective and how global events affect your finances? And now you can have that power in the palm of your dick. Hand. That's hand, isn't it? Is that how I get confused? With the Alio Capital app powered by Altitude AI, which identifies shifts in inflation, interest rates, and global risk, then adapts portfolios in real time. Alio is designed for hands-on or hands-off investors. Macro investing for people who want to understand the big picture. Investing is confusing. Get the Alio app to make it all simple. Go to the App Store or Google Play, or text my name Russell to 511 511. Investing involves risks, including the potential of loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee your results. See terms and conditions. Tax fees may apply. This is a paid advertisement for Alio Capital, baby, in case you thought it was me reading Shakespeare. That was an ad.
I'd rather help Christian migration, yeah, because it would assimilate, but how do we tell? Because all the Muslim migration that comes in now, even terrorists are pretending to be gay or pretending to be Christian so they can't be sent back. That's how they're claiming asylum. Again, there's no perfect situation to this. But what I wouldn't do is play a game or gamble with the future of Britain's daughters. And currently, Afghan migrants are 22 times more likely to be convicted of rape than British people. Why are we letting any Afghans in when we know that statistic? Why is there any more Afghans being allowed into Great Britain? Again, they don't have a right to come here. And when we look at the problems, as I said, white English are now 33% of our capital city. Where do we have to go? Because Afghanis can go back to their homeland. It's Afghanistan. Their homeland is not Britain. It's Afghanistan. Pakistanis can go back to Pakistan. Somalians can go back to Somalia. And when we talk about refugees, None of them are legitimate refugees. And I'll explain, Russell. When I was 11 or 12 years old, we had the Bishop family in my road in Luton. And I remember it was in the newspapers. And when the Bosnian War was on, when Bosnians were being massacred, and a Bosnian family, and it was a boy who come to my school, his daughter and their mum. So a mother and two children who come, and they were placed in the home with the Bishop family in our road, yeah? Now, you would be proud of our country, because I knew that boy. They were Muslim. His father was murdered, yeah, and butchered in the war, in the conflict. They come here on an aeroplane, brought into Luton Airport for a refugee program, yeah? So legitimate refugees brought into the UK, a mother, two children. They went to my school. They both grown up into brilliant British citizens, yeah? But that's refugees. This mess that we're seeing now. The hotel's full of young, angry, arrogant, hostile, violent men. 25 sexual assaults against minors from men in hotels. 9 British women raped by men in hotels. A terrorist attack by a man in a hotel. That is a whole different ballgame. We're talking about something very different. Do you think if those hotels are full of women and children, there'd be one protest outside them? There wouldn't be one protest outside them. Yeah? This is people trafficking. It's human trafficking. And they're being brought in to our country, and there's no checks done on them. But Russell, one case, yeah? When you pick up, and I could pick up hundreds of cases like this. One case, Bournemouth. So a young migrant comes, he comes to UK, he says he's 15. He's put into a school in Bournemouth. You have to look this case up. He's put into school in Bournemouth, right? He causes problems at school. He sexually harasses girls at school. When he gets to 19, he stabs a young Royal Marine in the heart and murders him, yeah, in the town centre. At that point, he's arrested from the murder. Guess what? They find out he's 25, which means when he was brought into the school, he was actually 21. Guess what they then find out? He shot 2 people dead in Serbia with an AK-47. So he shot 2 people dead. He comes through our border. He gets put in the classroom next to one of our daughters. He sexually harasses them, and then he murders a young Englishman. Now, if that was a one-off, it's not. Do you know how many cases? Do you know when the riots went on, Russell, in the UK after Stockport? Do you know they went on in Hull? What they don't tell you is a Muslim migrant left the hotel in Hull and he stabbed an old age British pensioner to death. Of course, people are outside the hotel. What they don't tell you is in Yarmouth, they left where people were protesting, a migrant left the hotel and raped a woman. What they don't tell you in Tamworth, Mohammed left the hotel and raped a woman. So when people are protesting outside, rather than have the legitimate discussion about why people are angry, what they did is blanketed it, politicised it as far right. So and that might have worked. They weaponised the judiciary, weaponised the media, weaponised the courts, imprisoned innocent people for words, for all their social media posts. That buried it for a limited time. What you're seeing now is it's rising up again. It's not going to go away. And it's not going to go away because people see, and I understand. And you know, when I meet many left-wing people, and I've got friends who have got left-wing partners, the reason that they have their liberal views and they welcome refugees is because they're lovely, wonderful people. Yeah, but it doesn't work like that. And what should we do first and foremost? Our job as a country is not to help Afghanistan. It's not to help them. It's to protect British people first. And that's it. And my first and foremost, I care about young English children being sexually harassed on their way to school in Epping. I don't care about the fucking Somalian in the hotel. I honestly don't. So when I look at that, and obviously, and this mood of the nation, which has totally changed, if we could just put up a truce, the Muslims would stop raping at an uncontrollable rate. Do you know in 2003, there were 8,000 rapes. 2003, Russell, there was 8,000 rapes. 2023, there were 88,000 rapes. What's changed? I know what's changed. You can do the demographics from Islamic immigration into Sweden and rapes, and there's a graph that correlates. It's the same for Britain. Yeah, there is and when we look at the statistics in the UK, Muslims make up, as I said, 5 or 6% of the UK population. 84 to 90% of the convictions for gang rape of children is Muslim men. So what if we had this truce? Are they going to stop raping? Are they going to stop being hostile? There's these problems. And I'm not saying all of them, bruv. I'm not saying all of them. But what I'm saying is that this utopia idea, it just doesn't work. It's not there.
I'm actually not pursuing utopianism because I think that's a sort of a terrifying idea, actually. But what I believe in is Christ and Christianity. I recognise your anger, and every single one of those examples and stories is appalling in its own way. And as a father of daughters, I couldn't be more sympathetic to your protective instinct. Your desire to fight and protect is extremely admirable. And as someone that's been accused of rape, I'm like, my God, it's so extraordinary that these stories involve the rape of women and the abuse of children, and that the media and judiciary appear in ways that don't quite make sense, appear to be masking and controlling this information and the understandable outrage around it. What I want to get to and understand is the correct, because the fact is, Tommy, at one point you said they weaponize the media and the judiciary. You're right, they do. Now that they, the government, the media, these sets of establishment powers that are beyond the reach of democracy, are in this instance using the issue of migration to create further hostility. And I understand why your focus is on the particular Somalians or particular Muslims that are doing those particular crimes. Why wouldn't they be? Totally makes sense. But what interests, and I'm not saying, by the way, you should focus on the things I'm focused on. You should focus on what you're focused on. I should focus on what I'm focused on. But maybe we can benefit one another, because I think there are a lot of things where we agree with one another. What I'm very focused on is what potential solution there can be. Thanks for watching the video. Have a look at this one over here, or join us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on Rumble.